Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. I'm the founder of an organization, a theatre organization called Kappa Pi. Now, when you think of a theatre organization, perhaps you're thinking about taking scripts, rehearsing them, and putting them on stage. Well, there's a little bit of that. But really, we evaluate our success in terms of our social and educational impacts, rather than whether somebody's had a great night out and a good laugh at the theatre. And I'm going to talk to you today about a project that we're doing right here at Newcastle University, which you can all be involved in. Each and every one of you, that's for sure. Now, before I start doing this, I thought I'd do some research into how to do a really good TED Talk. And I came up with there was 3 ways in, really, that they said. You could, first of all, start with a provocative question. Secondly, you could come up with an alarming statistic, or you could come up with a personal story. So I've elected to come up with all 3. So, first of all, a provocative question. What are universities for? Now, maybe that's a bit tired. I'm going to ask the question a little bit more sharper focus. Who are universities for? Let's start with that. Okay, an alarming statistic. 1% of the UK population has a PhD. I suspect this sample's a little higher. 1% of the UK population has a PhD. 1% of care leavers, children who leave care, access universities at all. 99% of kids who leave care don't access universities, apart from, and I expect they occupy a slightly higher proportion here, of research participants. Now, a personal story. A little while ago, my organization identified that there were hundreds of young people across the Northeast who don't access education between the ages of 11 and 16. We're talking hundreds of kids out here on the street who don't go to school. So we thought maybe they would prefer to be educated by us as part of a theatre ensemble. Turned out a few of them did. And so we kept a dynamic company going of around about 12 young people who worked as a theatre company. And that meant we worked them 5 days a week and looked at kind of drama processes, theatre games and exercises that would build ensemble. We looked at devising techniques so they could explore and share ideas. And we watched their kind of confidence grow. And people took interest in it. And we were invited, can you imagine? We were invited and funded, if you can remember that, to be able to take a group of young people to Brown University in Rhode Island, Providence, an Ivy League university. I have to say, I was a bit nervous about that. But you can imagine what these young people were like, these young people that we took. You know, going to Brown for a summer school. So we flew out there, arrived at the university, and it was a summer school, and it was full of kind of New England young people who were preparing to go to university, to begin their great adventures. And we turned up with our group from Newcastle. Oh, I was kind of nervous, really. And they were to work alongside an educational research team on a particular project, a particular element of the summer school, which was about a literacy project. Well, I didn't have a lot to do with it. I let the young people go away, and I had other jobs to do. And it was hot. It was July. It was hot, 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 hot. And I couldn't get to sleep. I really couldn't sleep. It was awful. And it was made worse by a group of young people kind of talking loudly outside my window in this university halls of residence. And then I heard a voice. And it was Mark. And it was a young person in care who was standing, holding forth amongst these young people from New England. And he was explaining what he was doing. He says, what we're doing is, we're watching people work with other young people doing drama. We're counting conditionals, which are words that they use, like would and could. And apparently, the more conditionals they use, the more creative they're being. My heart swelled. This was Gary, in care, standing, and all the young people from New England, wow, really? This is a 15-year-old lad in care, and it really concretized what my mission was about, which was to explore the relationship between drama and learning and thinking. But there was something about this moment with Mark that was more nuanced. And it was about what was the potential for Mark to become really involved in the highest possible academic thinking. How could we create the circumstances for that to happen? And how had we created the circumstances that had happened? It was something to do with drama. It was something to do with what drama was doing with him. Thinking about what drama is, our kind of drama, as I've said, it's about process. It's about games and that build ensemble, that build community. And it's about exploring ideas in different ways. Drama is art. I'm going to offer a definition of art. Art is a means of making sense of the world without necessarily relying upon literacy, numeracy, or logic. Now, literacy, numeracy, and logic are precisely the skills that you need to operate at the very highest level in academic life. Without them, you're kind of barred from it. If you don't have high levels of numeracy, literacy, and can command logic, then you're not going to end up on these walls, right? But should that bar people? Because art is a way of making sense of the world nevertheless. And somehow our work is now about creating a level playing field where we can experiment using drama and theatre to democratize that world. So what we're asking really researchers to do is for a while actually strip away the literacy, numeracy, and logic that you've relied on so much and enter a different environment for working. A different environment where you can connect with people. And we believe that you can do this at every stage of the research process. We believe that you can do this pre-question, question setting, data collection, data analysis, findings, and of course, presentation. And I'm going to give you an example of a project that we've done recently here with Newcastle University, which has been all about presentation. A doctoral candidate here at the university was conducting some research into masculine identity in South Tyneside with the HAS faculty, the Humanities and Social Sciences. And he's a social geographer. And he'd collected all of these texts, he'd collected all of this data, he'd collected all of these interviews from Irish men in South Tyneside. And he really felt, he's called Michael Richardson, by the way, he really felt that he wanted to give something back. He wanted to tell them what his findings. But he knew that only a handful of people were really going to be able to access his thesis. Because his thesis, I'm not being funny, I've got like a master's and everything, but I'm not going to read his thesis. You've really got to be a social geographer. You've got to at least be specialized in sociology to some degree to be able to access his thesis. So he gave us all of his verbatim texts and told us all about his work, and we made this into a piece of theater. It was a one-act play, it was a one-man play, where I played 3 generations of the same family. And we performed it back to these research participants. And it was, I guess you would expect, really, that they would kind of respond to it very positively, the people who took part in it. So the men who took part in this survey were really enthusiastic. But what we found as well is that the general public were really interested in it. And the feedback that we got from the general public was amazing. They were saying, this relates to our lives in so many ways. Everything that you're talking about here is how we feel about families and work and faith. And I suppose what was the most surprising part of it was the impact on Michael himself, the researcher himself. Because Michael realized that through the playmaking process and through the process of devising this work, it was having an impact on his perception of himself as a researcher. And it was having an impact on his thesis. So it changed his thesis. The process of working with these men and engaging them in this way was changing the way he was thinking of himself as a researcher. So this is where you can start to get involved and where we started to pull in other people. The University Public Engagement Department, in cooperation with the Newcastle Institute of Creative Arts Practice, NICAP, asked us if we would open this up to other members of the university, to other researchers in the university, and we were very, very happy to do so. So the Performing Research Project was launched last autumn. And maybe some of you got an email, but it was sent to everybody in the university who would like to come and get involved to find out how you can turn your research into theatre so that you can make your research accessible to the world. And we were overwhelmed with the response because we had response from medics, we had response from artists, we had response from computer scientists, we had response from surgeons, we had response from really the entire university was represented in our group, and it filled up really quickly. 26 places filled up like this, and they were from all over as well, really representing the university. So there was people from all over the world turned up. And they assembled in the room, and what was really interesting was how they responded to that challenge. As we stripped them of the ability to be able to talk about their work, they had to kind of perform their work. And we developed the ideas using drama processes, behaving as if. And when you behave as if and enroll, you start to get multiple perspectives. You start to look at the world through different frames, through different windows. Precisely the skills, I think, that researchers need. They were working collaboratively. They were working in a cross-disciplinary way. So somebody from medicine was able to influence somebody from the humanities, somebody from sociology was impacting on somebody from computer science. The whole thing was interdisciplinary. They were very quickly able to grab metaphors and work with them. Develop joint metaphors. So their research, their individual research was enriched. And we took all of these ideas and we performed them at Northern Stage. And if you'd been at the evening, you would have seen the most diverse evening of theatre you can imagine, I think. We had an Edwardian take, really, on 50 Shades of Grey. The whole evening was themed around love. Love in everybody's research. We looked at IVF and the emotional context for IVF, seen from the patient's point of view and seen from the researcher's point of view. We had probably the most diverse EV you can imagine. We had people looking at belonging and home and family, which was based on a sociologist's work into Polish families and migration to Newcastle. So it was an evening, a really diverse evening, all about love. I'm pleased to say that we've got 2 years more funding that the university have awarded us to keep this work up. And this is my invitation to you, really. If you want to find out more about it, it'll be easy to find out because you'll go, I want to find out about it, and you'll come and talk to me. It's going to be happening from the autumn again. So if you're a researcher who wants to explore this, or you're from the general public, or wherever you've come from, come and join us. The more the merrier. So we have 2 more years of studios. We have 4 more events happening at the northern stage, and we have specific projects that we have. One of them is with the English department. Now, the English department here, students, they're very concerned, the staff are very concerned that the students aren't able to really make a link with communities. That they come here from school, they do their bachelor's, perhaps they move on to an MA, and then they become teachers without really making that link with the community. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with children in care, in Gateshead, and have students from the university working alongside them to explore Beowulf. So this is a unit of work that they have to do, but they can explore Beowulf without, with children themselves who are in care, who have to deal with the themes of bravery and heroes and monsters every day. Now, what I expect from this project is that there's going to be a big exchange of literacy, of literacies, from the kind of potential 1% to the 99%. And I think that when I talk about an exchange of literacies, what I'm really more concerned about is the literacies that are passed on from these kids in care to the researchers of the future. That's what I'm more concerned about. That's what I hope will come out of it. So that the researchers of the future and the higher education academic leaders of the future are aware that they can use alternative methods, not literacy, not necessarily numeracy, and not necessarily logic, to make a bridge between themselves and those who are hardest to reach in society. Thanks very much indeed.